Good morning, everyone. Let's start the class with the prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhu Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Asto Ma Satgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamya. ओम सहनावतु सहना भुनक्तु सवीर्यं कर्वावहि तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहि ओम शांति शांति शांति. Last week in our Wednesday's class, if you remember, we talked about meditation, dhyan. Dhyan. Before we reach the dhyan stage, we got to learn how to concentrate. And in the past, we have talked about that also, concentration, which is called dharana. Okay. If you look at the ladder of Raj Yoga, you see dharana, dhyan, samadhi. And if you look at the ladder of Hatha Yoga, over there also dhyan and samadhi. So that means after the purifications, after learning how to concentrate, after learning how to deal with the life situations, we got to meditate. Meditate, which is dhyan. I have told you earlier, if you can concentrate on your chosen object, and the chosen object has to be divine, which you think is part of divinity, God, for 12 seconds, that becomes 1 unit of dharana. 12 seconds. And when you do 12 units of dharana, that becomes 1 unit of dhyan. When you do 12 units of dhyan, that becomes 1 unit of samadhi.
Hersh, can you please repeat that?
Sure. 12 seconds is equivalent to 1 unit of dharana, concentration. Okay, 12 seconds. Then 12 units of dharana, that means 12 times 12 seconds, that's almost like a 2.5 minutes. That becomes 1 unit of dhyan, meditation. And 12 units of meditation, that means 2.5 times 12, that's almost like half an hour, becomes 1 unit of samadhi. So you can see that in order to reach samadhi, it takes practice. Some of you might have already reached there. But if we have not reached there, never had a glimpse of it, we better start to meditate regularly. And if we have not even reached the meditation yet, we are trying to only concentrate, that's okay too. Spend some time concentrating on a divine object every single day. Same time, same place, freshen up yourself and sit down and try to absorb into that divinity. You won't even know how when you just reach samadhi, if you do it sincerely, earnestly, with a full faith. Okay, so today's topic is samadhi. Samadhi. So again, concentration leads to one-pointedness. Prolonged concentration leads to meditation, and meditation expands the mind into superconscious state. It's not a subconscious state, it's a superconscious state, which is called samadhi. Who calls it a samadhi? The yogis do. This word is used in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which is also called a book of Raj Yoga. But Patanjali, or I should say Rishi Patanjali, warns us that the practice of concentration must be accompanied by vairagya, non-attachment. A person who tries to concentrate while remaining attached to the things of the world will either fail altogether, or his acquired power of concentration may lead him into great danger, because he will use it for selfish reasons. So vairagya really means more and more selflessness. Vairagya is a big part on the path of spirituality. The danger of attachment is exemplified in the technological progress of modern man. Through the study of the objective world, we have been able to harness the forces of nature somewhat, but our attachment to the world has led us to misuse these forces. So vairagya is not there. Look at atomic energy. Sure, it could be beneficial to the mankind, and it is, provided a human being develops an attitude of concern for humanity. But we can see that instead of that, it has become a threat to mankind's survival, because a man lacks an attitude of sympathy towards other fellow men. The threat of nuclear power lies not in the nature of the atom, but rather in man's attachment. That's why the yogi gurus, they say detachment is important. Vairagya is essential. And non-attachment does not signify renunciation of the world. Even though many people mistakenly interpret it in this way. Vairagya means perfecting the art of living here and now. Performing your duties skillfully, enjoying life, and yet remaining free from depending on and addiction to the objects of the world. When this technique of vairagya is perfected, it is possible to live in the world and yet be free. It's almost like learning how to swim in the water rather than drown in the water. That is a perfection of detachment. The aspirant can use the forces of nature and the objects of the world as tools. So these are the tools given to us by the nature. And who owns the nature? God owns the nature. So the objects of the world as tools to further the expansion of our consciousness. So instead of becoming the slave to the tools, we got to learn how to be the master of these tools. It is not necessary for anyone to renounce the world in order to attain samadhi. So in other words, I'm trying to tell you, being a householder, doing your duties, practicing meditation, you can attain samadhi. You don't have to go into the jungles. How does a person cultivate the attitude of non-attachment? Because that is the key ingredient there, vairagya. An aspirant, a seeker, can start on the practical level of action. He can read about the great sages of any religion, study their lives, and model his life on theirs. That means do what your guru does. Do what those saintly people felt it. We see most of the gurus, they are householders. How can they live in this world, in the Maya, but still stay detached from it? Learn it from them. That's why Guru is important. This will lead to non-attachment, in that person's love for these ideals will begin to develop into love for all humanity. Another method of cultivating non-attachment is to discover Brahma, the central or absolute reality, manifested in the great sages of history. Brahma is everywhere. We are not just looking for it. Our concentration is only in the Maya, not in the Brahma. Otherwise, there's no place where Brahma is not. So cultivate that habit, realizing that these great people are individual projections of Brahma will soon lead to realization that Brahma is not only in them, but in each one of us, and that we are all one. So these kind of a thoughts, this kind of a understanding, this kind of a practice will take us to Samadhi right away. There are two stages of Samadhi: Savikalpa Samadhi and Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Sa means with, Nir means without. Savikalpa Samadhi is a lower stage. The sadhak retains a sense of individuality in Savikalpa Samadhi. The seeker of the truth sees the truth, but retains the sense of I as being different from the truth he is experiencing. So he has to go beyond Savikalpa to the next stage, which is called a Nirvikalpa, in which the seeker becomes one with the one. Here is to be found the union of the Atma with Brahma. That happens only in a Nirvikalpa Samadhi. This stage transcends the stage of intense love and longing for the ideal. For now, the seeker merges into his ideal. So there's no me and him. There's only one. No sense of duality remains. It's almost like a train is coming from far. You look at it, you love. You have a more intense love for the train, that light which is coming. But once you climb in the train, then there's a oneness. So this is Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Only one who is well established in the stage of Nirvikalpa Samadhi is an illumined yogi. When we talk about the illumination, or when we say realized yogi, or a yogi itself, that's a Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And only he can truly guide other aspirants. Such a yogi is the beyond of bondage of space, time, and causation, and is ever free, because it is possible for him to remain dissolved in Brahma and yet return to normal consciousness. Okay? Since we have not experienced it, it seems mystical to us. But you will see that in your daily life, aren't you doing many things together which somebody else think that I cannot do it? So this is also after the practice of meditation, then reaching the Samadhi, Savikalpa Samadhi, then Nirvikalpa Samadhi. This yogi has achieved eternal bliss, which is undisturbed by external conditions. It's like a constant connection with the Brahma, which does not stop or sever any time. Even during sleep, this connection is there. There may seem to be some resemblance between withdrawal from the external world in deep sleep, because when we are sleeping, looks like, hey, I'm not attached to this world. And somebody might mistake it with the state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But there is also a vast difference. So I'm talking about the deep sleep, which is called Sushupti, and the Turiya. Sushupti is an unconscious state, while the Turiya is the height of consciousness. That's why it's called a super consciousness. It's almost like you can understand with this example, suppose two people go to see a king. One falls asleep before the king, while the other remains awake and enjoys the king's presence. The one who remains awake is like one in the blissful state of Samadhi, fully awake. While the other being, even though he or she is in the presence of the king, remains in the darkness of ignorance. So in deep sleep, a person is very near to reality, but is not aware of reality. So that is a big difference between deep sleep, even though you do feel rested, but you are not awakened. But in a samadhi, you are rested also, because there's no disturbance of any kind, but you feel the bliss also, because you are fully awakened. We learned in Bhagavad Gita that even during sleep, a yogi remains fully awake to Brahma. And in the waking state, he remains as if asleep to worldly attachments. In this divine union, subject and object are dissolved in an ocean of supreme love. I'm talking about this Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Subject and object. It is difficult to express the joy of the superconscious state. Words cannot explain it. You cannot. Words are limited when it comes to explaining this kind of a joy. Personal experience is the only way to realize the eternal joy. Personal experience. And in order to have the personal experience, we must do the sadhana. Nobody can cultivate vairagya for us. Only we got to do it. Just like there is an Irish proverb, no matter how tall your grandfather was, you have to grow yourself. The same way, no matter how realized our guru is, we have to do our own sadhana. And that is the personal experience of this eternal joy. Eternal, why eternal? Because it never diminishes. Atma is eternal, Brahma is eternal. So this joy, when you know, you have felt it, it is eternal. It does not go away. There is a word, samahitam, which means the state where all questions are answered. Samahitam. Because this intellect has the questions, mind fluctuates and questions do come up, but samahitam is the state where all questions are answered. And that conveys the experiential quantity quality of the state of Samadhi. So in other words, we can get the answers from the books. We can get the answers from the Guru also. We can get answers from other places also. But the real answers come from in this state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. When all questions are answered and there is no doubt of any sort, then the mind soars beyond the level of the language. Because questions can be answered only with the help of the language, and language is limited, it's finite. And here, a seeker is looking for something which is infinite, which cannot be put into the language. So that's why I said, in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the mind soars beyond the level of the language in which it's accustomed to think. Samadhi does not occur at the level of thought or even feeling. Remember that. Sure, feelings are very powerful in us, but Samadhi is beyond that. That's why Samadhi is called Bhavatit. Bhav means the feeling or the thought, but Samadhi is Bhavatit, which means beyond feelings. And I'm talking about the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The state of Samadhi, according to Patanjali's system, is considered to be the highest state attainable by yogis. Okay, so in that Hatha Yoga, the ladder of Hatha Yoga, it ends with Samadhi. Ladder of Raj Yoga, Samadhi. In other schools also, because in that great land of Bharatvarsha, it was encouraged to think. All the scientists, they just came up with different philosophies. So different schools of thoughts came from there. So word Samadhi is not used in other schools of thought. Meditative school of Buddhism, for example, uses the word Nirvana for that highest stage, to describe that highest stage of consciousness. And how do they do that? Through negation, one experiences a void which is called Nirvana. And there's a philosophy of Advaita Vedanta also. They describe something beyond Nirvana. And according to this school, the highest state is called Sakshatkar. This Sakshatkar is comparable to the state called Samadhi in Rishi Patanjali's system, in a yoga system. So according to Raj Yoga, when the individual consciousness expands itself to become universal consciousness, when a jiva, that jivahood drops down and you realize that you are the Purush, the Atma, then the word Samadhi is used. It is a state beyond mind. It is a state beyond action. That's why they say that actions cannot take you there. It is a state beyond speech because you cannot utter it. You cannot tell somebody that what you have experienced. It is the eighth and the final rung on the yoga ladder. And it is achieved. And it is achievable by all the aspirants. And it is achieved when the seeker establishes his practice firmly, is able to continue his or her meditation for a long time without interruption, yet with full devotion and reverence. Dhira kal satikara sevita dridbhumi. Rishi Patanjali's words. When the subtle sense of self-identity vanishes, allowing control of the latent modifications of the mind, then Samadhi is attained. Okay. These practical hints will help you in your practice of meditation. Number one, whatever spiritual method you follow, practice it systematically and regularly. Remember, the reward is immense. Number two, laziness or sloth is the greatest enemy. Alasya. Alasya is a ripu. Ripu means enemy. So laziness, carelessness, those are our enemies. Life is short, time is fleeting, and obstacles are many. Conquer them by sincere effort and prayer. Pray to God. God, please give me the wisdom. Please give me the strength. Please give me the health so that I can continue my sadhana. We often pray for the worldly things. Pray for this. Prayers to intensify your sadhana is more important than praying for the worldly pleasures. Help comes from a higher level to sincere aspirants. God is there to help us. God is waiting for a sincere seeker like this. Just like a mother is always waiting for a child. And our eternal father, eternal mother, eternal friend, our everything. We sing that every day. Tomev sarvam mama deva deva. So we have to just pray to him for this kind of a guidance, this kind of a energy. Just as you eat every day, that is the next hint I'm giving you. Just as you eat every day, in fact, several times a day. Sometimes we don't even know how many times we eat. The minute we see something, our hands just automatically take that food into the mouth, whether we need it or not. So also, you will have to meditate. If you want to realize this truth quickly, if this is the kind of a burning desire you have, Brahma is everywhere, how come I don't see him? How don't I feel that bliss, that joy, which is eternal? So if you want to realize this truth quickly, when you meditate it sincerely. You will develop divine virtues. A spiritual path is constructed in the mind. It's not outside. Outside, sure, we got to make sure that it's conducive. Phone away, phone off, no TV, no clutter, no people. But eventually, it's like an internal growth. So spiritual path is constructed in the mind. And if you do not practice regularly and become relaxed, the spiritual path will be washed. It will get cluttered. How? The flood of impure thoughts, the worldly thoughts. So that's why regularity in meditation is of paramount importance. If for some reason you did not meditate all day, do not sleep until you meditate. Okay? Because some people think that we won't be able to sleep if we meditate. No, that is not true. Last time I told you, you'll sleep much better. Your sleep will be a divine sleep if you meditate before sleeping. Your guru might appear in your dream to bless you, that my child did what I've been telling my child to do. So there shouldn't be a day when we don't meditate. Meditation leads to the gate of intuitive knowledge. We often talk about intuition. Meditation takes us there. And that intuitive knowledge is the real knowledge. It's not a gut feeling. It's a real knowledge. It is a mysterious ladder that takes the seeker from earth to heaven. Truth is the Atma, but it's not possible to realize that truth without meditation. That's why this dhyan, meditation, is talked about by all the saints, all the sages. The paths are many. We often hear that. But you should follow only one path and practice only one method. Talking about meditation. Do not condemn anyone else or anybody else's method or religion, but instead follow your own. Method should not be changed again and again. The mind assumes the form of the objects to cognize. When the aspirant continuously meditates on the inner Atma, he reaches the state of Samadhi. And in this blissful state, nothing is seen or heard. Remember that. Hearing and the scenes, they belong to the material nature, not to the Atma. There is no body consciousness when you're in Samadhi. There is only one consciousness, and that is the consciousness of all-pervading Atma. This is how you will feel when you're in Samadhi. This superconscious experience is called Turiya, the fourth state. And I'm sure you're familiar with the other three states, which we go through every day. Waking state, Jagrat Avastha, sleeping state, Nidra Avastha, Sushupti state, deep sleep, and then Turiya is the fourth one, the Samadhi. We need to reach there. So the first three stages, waking, dreaming, dreamless sleep, they're common to everyone. And the fourth one is latent in everyone. Latent. Everybody can go there. It's available to all of us. But in order to reach there, we have to do the sadhana. When a yogi establishes himself in the fourth stage, he or she experiences the living reality in his mind, action, and speech. Then he realizes at all times, under all circumstances, that he is identical with the Sat, Chit, and Anand. Existence, knowledge, and bliss. Let me tell you, the real spiritual life begins after this. Before this, we are only just paving the road. At this stage, you enter the state of superconsciousness, and it is the state of divine peace, eternal peace. Always remember that Samadhi is not a state that can be attained easily. You cannot buy it. You got to do your practice. But if it is achieved, supramental or intuitional knowledge is experienced. That's how all those mantras, they came to us. In the Samadhi state of those yogi, those rishis, those munis, A person who does not possess this knowledge cannot understand the true meaning of a religion. Otherwise, with the ordinary meaning of religion, we just keep on fighting. My religion is better than yours. How many people are followers of my religion and how many yours? But when you are at this state of supra consciousness, then you understand religion really means re and religion, connect back. And we all need to connect back to the same. In this state, the senses, the mind, the intellect, they cease to function. In order to live in this worldly life, we need our body, we need our senses, we need our intellect. But for samadhi, we don't need. Just as a river merges into the ocean, so does the individual soul merges into the supreme soul. And what happens? All the limitations, they disappear. The river has the limitation, but ocean does not. So that's what happens. So often beginners are afraid of this union because they think their individuality might dissolve or be engulfed. Actually, got to remember, what occurs is not a loss of individuality, but an expansion of individuality. We don't lose anything. We only gain. We gain in losing, but we don't really lose. As long as the mind functions within the limited realms of individual consciousness, a seeker can meditate but never attain samadhi. That's why some people, they say, I've been meditating for so long, but I haven't attained it. The deepest state of meditation expands individual consciousness, and when it has expanded to its fullest capacity, that is called samadhi. Sleepless sleep, soundless sound, the highest state of peace, the highest state of silence. However we may describe it, this is the highest state a Raj Yogi can attain, while at the same time remaining aware of his attainment. As I said earlier, many errors, failures face the seeker on the divine journey. And the greatest of these is laziness. Laziness. For example, after a short period of meditation, an aspirant may feel like sleeping. And further meditation then becomes difficult. This is because he has not yet formed the habit of sitting in a steady posture and meditating on a single object. People get bored. But you got to tell your mind to continue. During meditation, the aspirant may feel that he is rising from his seat, like lifted up. Some may feel that they are flying in the air. Various people have different experiences, all of which are functions of the mind. Remember that. Do not get absorbed into that, because all of which can become obstructions in the path of meditation. Okay. To the wise, they give encouragement for further progress. Just think that, yeah, definitely energy is rising up, but do not make that as your goal. These are only the stepping stones. Stay detached from them. Some hear melodious sounds and others see light. Some receive spiritual joy, others get both light and joy. These are temporary places and may inspire those who pass through them. Just draw only the inspiration from these moments. They are not the goal. On the other hand, there will be those who will not see or experience any such visions. It is of no consequence. All these experiences are illusory visions. They are not necessary for progress in meditation. Remember that. So that's why it's not important to talk to each other. Only person you should talk about your meditation or the experiences during meditation is your guru. Okay, not with other sadhaks, because you start comparing and competing and you will not move up. Because these could be hallucinations based on objects previously seen, heard, or imagined. On the other hand, the more an aspirant meditates, the more his intuition is developed. It is the intuition which becomes the real guide. Intuition. The state of samadhi is not often experienced, but there are various paths described in the scriptures to attain it. The path of negation, the path of selfless action, the path of devotion. These are different paths. And also remember, the emotional ecstasy is not samadhi. Inspiration does help, but uncontrolled emotion is dangerous. In other words, inspiration from the guru is definitely beneficial, but ecstasy, which is full of emotion, cannot be called deep meditation. That's why that's also called a bhav samadhi. Okay? So it's a samadhi, but a bhav samadhi, still lower level of samadhi. We got to reach that bhavatit, a simile which will give you an idea of samadhi, like 4 aspirants. They are at the foot of a mountain. They begin their search along different paths, using different methods. They describe the experiences of their journey differently until they reach the top of the mountain. So samadhi is reaching the top. Samadhi is not walking on the path. So when they reach the summit, they all have the same view. There they agree that they are all at the same place. Sameness. This experience cannot be shared with aspirants who have not completed the climb. Mere words of explanation are like the husk of a grain and does not benefit from the nourishing properties of the grain's kernel by studying the husk. There is a very popular expression, all roads lead to Rome. Is it true? But when it comes to methods leading to self-realization, only Raj Yoga and its methods of training are scientific and subject to empirical verification. Raj Yoga leads the student to the final state of realization. Not by training the intellect alone, but by training the whole person, making him more useful to himself, to humanity also. That's why on the ladder of the Raj Yoga, it starts with the yam and the niyam. Ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha, all those qualities, they are like a first 2 steps on this ladder. So then you are walking on the path which is treaded by all those yogis beautifully before. There is a saying that blessed are those who have attained samadhi. But I would say blessed are those who are striving to attain it also. because we are striving, we are strivers, we are sadhaks. By keeping all this in mind, we should just keep on doing our sadhana properly without becoming lazy. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much.